Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So for the longest time, we've had this discussion in the community as to which content players engaged in much more. And for the longest time, I've actually had to, argue that one of the content pieces seemed to be able to hold its own, and if not anything, had the majority of players engaging in it. And this is basically, PvP or PvE. I remember for the longest time, I usually said, I felt like the PvE in the Division 1 was solid enough, and there were enough people playing it that it more than likely inspired the direction of the Division 2, which has a much more heavier PvE-centered focus than the Division 1. To this, I was met with a lot of criticism, and just recently, the data that the developers basically put out there showed them pointing out a lot of the PvE activity in the game, and I think it's a little telling how players have engaged this, because it seems like players have enjoyed the PvE in the division a lot more. Now, before we even move further, I want to make a correction from my last video. I assumed that there were 40 million players on the Division 2 alone. Apparently, that is for the entire franchise. So that is a correction I wanted to make. I mean, you can interpret the data. If you think it was a success that the whole Division franchise has brought in 40 million, or in some people's minds, only 40 million, it could be more, that's also fine. I mean, if you're a baker and you've served 40 million loaves of bread, I think you're a successful, or I think you're a respectable baker. If Massive was a baker, they'll be a respectable one. It just depends on who's actually, viewing it. So if you think about the way they set out these stats, 109 billion NPC kills, 117 billion were skill kills. March 2020 being the highest activity in the Division 2, which is where they brought Division 2's Warlords of New York, which was primarily a PvE content piece. You could argue that the PvE content piece is what a lot of players engage in to go to do PvP. But then you have the agents that are clearing 36,000 floors of the summit, or you have agents clearing 97 million floors of the summit. Why are agents basically just vegging on PvE content? What's going on? 20 billion items looted. Why are agents so into the PvE? And this is a question that's baffled a lot of people who wish to see the PvP of the game basically go to some direction. I don't necessarily know the direction because there's so many different opinions. Sometimes it's difficult to kind of narrow it down. I've seen there's a content creator that makes a lot of Division content on PvP. He's made videos saying that the Division's PvP was broken because there are just too many spamming of a lot of these skills that were not necessarily, in my opinion, designed for a PvP aspect of the game. But then there lies the conundrum of PvP in the Division. How do you negate things that players have worked hard for in PvE and then tell them that they can't use it in PvP? Are players going to enjoy that experience? That's a question that the developers probably need to go ahead and answer. But nonetheless, I think it brings us to a place where we have to basically ask ourselves, what is the Division franchise going to look like if they made another Division game? Are they going to bring a bigger emphasis on PvP based on these numbers, or are these numbers quite selective? Could there be PvP numbers that are actually better than this? There could be, but for something that I've basically argued to say that I don't think PvP basically was the lifeblood of the Division 1 or even the Division 2. I think to that there's a little bit more credence to it. I mean, yes, sure, the Division 1's PvP was very much propagated on YouTube. There were videos everywhere. There was all this drama. One guy beats 4 people. But honestly, not a lot of people engaged in the content. They watched it. They looked at the manhunts and the multi-manhunt groups and all of the videos because they were funny to watch, but it didn't necessarily translate that more people were playing the PvP. Or, I remember playing the Division 1 to basically the end of life. And I remember playing more PvE, and always having people to run with on PC, and people were so engaged in that aspect of the content. It wasn't really a problem to find people, but I remember the Dark Zone being empty. You go in the Dark Zone, it wasn't the same as the very first few months of the game. The Dark Zone was just a freebie zone where I could go in and farm and get chests and caches and shade tech anytime I wanted. So I didn't necessarily see that correlation whenever people were basically assuming it. Now, the truth is it could be that that's the case, but we don't have anything to support it. What we have is players basically enjoying the PvE, from what they're showing us. I mean, one person basically has, what in the world will make anybody play the game to revive 27,000 agents? That's a huge PvE player, man. They must have they must have a crazy good revive hive, or they've been using the support station from the Division 1 and just been reviving people all the way from then. But it's really interesting nonetheless to kind of see what the division as a whole has basically achieved, and potentially, if there's going to be another game, what direction it's going. There are also other questions out there. Some people are saying, if they've achieved about 40 million players, why are they not bringing content to the game? What is going on? And the truth is, they are bringing content to the game. Yes, it seemed like they wanted to end the show. Could it be that they wanted to end the show to make another game? Could be that they were trying to end the show and bounce and go to a single player game. For crying out loud, single player games, are so much more profitable. You don't have to deal with balancing and all of the other issues that come with it. In my opinion, anyways, that's my perception. So it could be that they're eyeing their Star Wars and Avatar IPs, and they just want to go into those games where they make them, they deliver them, and everybody goes home, and they don't have to have somebody dealing with the fact that, somebody has found a glitch where they can now run through missions in one shot, or somebody is now able to basically melt the whole Dark Zone because their, gear set's bugged. I feel like there are many other things that basically lend the possibility that this might be the last Division game. But if you were to ask me, I don't think it is. I think, even if you were to say, you're splitting both Division 1 and Division 2 agents and said, okay, maybe there were like 15 million people who play Division 1 and 15 in Division 2, I still think 15 million is significant enough to continue the game. And so this is where I believe that the developers might move towards, is in bringing another game. I guess the question for a lot of PvP players would be, does that mean that we're probably going to get a better PvP experience? The answer to that is I don't know. I usually encourage a lot of PvP players to seek out PvP games that have a competitive aspect to it. That's one thing that, game development's about. If your development team is going to focus on PvP, it will be hard for them to focus on a robust PvE as well. The demand of what people want from the division is not necessarily a demand that we've seen met by many games. Destiny also has issues too, trying to figure out what PvP will look like. I watch Destiny creators, and many times its PvP has a lot of issues as well. And that's because the focus is divided. If you were to say, compared to maybe say other games, like the games with a competitive aspect, their focus is basically, streamlined to making the PvP experience the best it can be. Look at Rainbow Six Siege, another Ubisoft game, another Tom Clancy game, has the Rainbow Six Invitational, so they've streamlined the game and made it basically a fun game. Look at For Honor, another Ubisoft game that came out in shambles, but Ubisoft stuck with the game, and the game has basically reached a competitive worthy aspect. Look at other fighting games. Look at Mortal Kombat 11, Street Fighter, Tekken. These games have a competitive aspect to them. And so it's really interesting to see that they understand that it's their bread and butter, that if the games are balanced, they stay respectable. They're able to show up at the big events like EVO or, all of these esports events that really do allow for their games to shine and continue to sell more copies, sell DLC, sell characters, sell agents. Rainbow Six will bring a new operator, if you know what I mean. That's a nice addition to the game that players basically, in a sense, would engage with the game and potentially spend more money. So if the PvP in a game is not necessarily bringing that kind of, I would say, focus to it, it's very hard to see the PvP actually get better. So I understand the wishes of a lot of people saying, man, Division 2's PvP could be so much better, but how come it's not? And some people have chalked it up to the devs not knowing what they're doing. It could also be that the devs don't really know how to balance PvP, but I doubt it because, I think they probably just don't have it as their major focus because, it's not the major focus of the studio. It's a unique selling point, but it doesn't mean that they're going to spend all of their time. Well, it's obvious that they have not and don't seem like they will be spending a lot of time doing it. Now, hopefully, the next content piece that comes out, they actually do something nice in PvP. I'm actually looking forward to that possibility, but we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's pretty much my video. I wanted to break my silence a little bit on, the PvP side of things, and I know the comment section is going to be filled with different opinions, and that's fine too. It's a continuing conversation. We don't have all the data. What we have is what I'm going on right now. So let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.